Whether you regularly write a blog post, newsletter, or scripts for your YouTube videos, hidden within the effort that you put into that long form content is a gold mine of short form content that can help you to gain more impressions and reach on social media and go viral. And what I'm going to show you is how you can take some time to create custom frameworks for your content so that every time you write one of those long form pieces, you instantly get 15 or more pieces of short form content that's going to be high performing across the different social media platforms. And what I've found is if you are willing to spend 30 to 60 minutes up front working through figuring out which frameworks work best for your style of content and your niche, and choosing some of the people that you follow already on social media that tend to go viral or get lots of views, you can take their frameworks, inspire it to create your own, and then turn it into prompts to use in Notion or ChatGPT or Claude so that you can instantly create those pieces to go out across your different platforms. Now, before we get into the steps of how to do this, I just want to really quickly show you how easy it is to turn this into content once you have a system in place. Now, the way that I do this now is with a GPT that I built, and I want to show you how quick it can really turn a long form piece of content into all of the short form pieces. Now, this works best if you do it for your own content. There's no point in trying to copy and steal someone else's content just to post on social media. To me, it's all about having to save some time when you write those long form pieces of content to make it into those bite-sized, more viral style of nuggets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a recent example from my blog, take this entire length of the blog post once it's published, and I'm happy with the final form, and put it into the Content Viralizer. And just with a hit of a button, it instantly starts producing all of the variations that I can then post, or with a little bit of tweaking. And if you are willing to take, a few seconds to go the extra 10% of the way, you get a better result. But this sometimes gives you a really great result, especially because you've written the long form content in your own voice already. So as you can see, that gives you all of the different variations that you can then use. The problem I see is that most people are not willing to take the time to work out the prompts that work best for their content. So if you're willing to do that little bit of extra work up front, it becomes infinitely better for you in the long run, because then you're getting great results from those AI prompts. The other thing is that you don't take enough time to look and find the best viral templates in the first place. So the first step is to research viral content. And if you like being on social media, this will be fun for you. If you hate the idea of spending time on social, that's why you're trying to create this viral content so that you can automatically schedule it out and not spend so much time on the platforms. Suck it up, because this is an important part of the step to getting the best results for your voice and your brand. So be willing to spend those 30 to 60 minutes figuring out and creating the frameworks that work for you. Now, using somebody else's prompts can work really well. And even some of the posts that I use have inspiration from others who have those proven frameworks for themselves. But if you're willing to spend the time and look through social to figure out which types of posts you like and which ones you think are going to resonate with your brand, it's going to go that much further on working well for you. So I like using X or Twitter and LinkedIn as the two places to start this research, because people prioritize their written forms of content on there. And so you've got a good idea of what those templates and what those frameworks are going to look like when you go through those platforms. So I like to look at people who tend to post viral content often, or tend to have that reach that looks like it goes viral pretty often, like Justin Welsh, Dickie Bush, Tim Denning. On LinkedIn, there's Adam Robinson. There are a bunch of people, and you've probably got some in your circle that you want to follow or sort of use inspiration from their content. So there are some different tools and ways that we can go about doing this, but with something like Keywords Everywhere as well, I can see what the average impressions for somebody's platform are, and then looking at that, we can kind of see which ones are getting more impressions than average to get an idea of what is something that maybe you can create a viral framework out of. So there's the one that's got the 60,000 here. It's being underestimated as one of the most monstrous competitive advantages you can have. One of those sort of like pithy quotes can be a tough one to create a viral framework out of. You'd want to maybe more so find something that is going to give you a better chance of creating consistent content with a framework. So this is another one with the happiest people I know. And I think this is one that he posts fairly often because it is very popular. But maybe we can get something out of this. And if you saw my recent video on how I did this in under a couple of minutes, what we would do is take this into Chat GPT and ask it to distill the essence of this post to create a framework. So it looks like it's kind of leaning towards suggesting that this one is going to be like business focused. So if you write about business, this could be a good example. I like to find ones that are a little more general. So here we go again. Here's something about the life stages. Now you can also go and if you're willing to take the time, this one, the life stages one's pretty easy to kind of create your own framework from. Instead of asking ChatGPT to do it, you can just look at it and get the essence of it. You know, it's like, what is, in your opinion, something that you do in your 20s? What do you do in your 30s? What do you do in your 40s? And then wrap it up with some sort of like statement that is catchy. So that's a pretty good example of one that could be turned into a framework that you would use often in different types of posts that you create. And let's look at somebody, you know, Justin Welsh also has really good examples on LinkedIn. So we'll look at somebody else though. Adam Robinson writes a lot of business related content. So again, depending on what niche you're in, some of his types of posts might not work that great for your business, but get an idea of what is something that is getting more engagement, so more likes, what's getting more comments, and try to find, you know, something that's going to give you an opportunity to create the framework from it first. So it seems like this one, it's kind of story based. He's talking about a birthday party he attended, the conversation, and then, you know, it kind of comes out as a point at the end. So let's see what we get out of a framework like this. Okay, so it's giving you the idea of like stay small, think big. So, and suggesting start with vulnerability, so sharing a relatable moment, highlighting a misconception, revealing what the reality of the situation is, showing what your struggle is, reinforcing your core belief, and then the call to stay strong at the end. This could be a really good example of one that you can use and turn into a framework. So from there, we can actually use this with a specific piece of content, like something like, a recent post. And then what you want to do is test these out with your content to see if it actually produces something that's good. So when you do that with several people, eventually you're going to get some really good frameworks that you can use for your content. Another example is Tim Denning just shared a life lessons one from being 38. He says, if you're in your 20s or 30s, read this. And if you follow through, that first one's got 2.3 million views. It's got the first two in that first tweet, and then it goes from there. And it's a long list. And obviously the impressions drop down, but they're still really high, even relative to his average, which average is 74,000. So even all of those ones trickle down. So this is another good example of a viral content piece that pretty much anybody can make, because it's the life lessons one. You start with a statement of how old you are. If you're younger, read this, do this, follow these steps. That kind of post tends to perform really well to share life lessons that people want to hear from you about and that are related to your niche. So, we could take this one and so again, it's the timeless lessons. Call out like a specific audience. So your specific audience, that's going to help present a universal truth, reframe a misconception, something like that. Now we can try this with my recent post too and see how it performs. So it's going to suggest what to do based off of the framework. Is usually the first thing if you ask ChatGPT to create the framework. So let's then instead, once it's done going through it, you could take this and test it out for your content very easily by just working through it. We can say instead, then just ask it to not explain what it's doing. And now we're going to get a really great series of tweets based on that blog post that I had. And, even the call to action for engagement at the end of it. So now we've kind of found a framework that really works. We've tested it out, and also post about it, post it and see how it performs for your content when you post it. Now, the next step in the process is to turn it into a repeatable framework. So an example of this would be things that I used in Notion in the past. So you'd have different variations like the past versus present framework, where you would kind of create it into a more universal thing, like using the content from this page, identify a past versus present scenario that is appropriate for the topic, write a social media post about it. It can be in a format like this, for example. I used to, point 1, point 2, point 3, now I, point 1, point 2, point 3. You probably see a lot of that. Things like contrarian viewpoints or observations. That example from Adam Robinson was a story. There's also sort of that timeless age question of like, I'm this age now. If you're younger, do this. And you can also specify things like shorten these to be less than 280 characters for a Twitter post. So, in the past, I used to use these with Notion, and I would copy, and we can take actually the example from my blog post again. In Notion, before I set it up with with ChatGPT, what I would do is I would, at the bottom of every blog post that I had written, use these and just use the Notion AI and paste in that prompt and have it rewrite as the prompt in Notion. Unpopular opinion, consistency is overrated. Here's why. Now this would work as a really great, LinkedIn post, or you can kind of shorten it as well into a post that you would use on Twitter. So then the power is that you've got them all saved in one central place, like I do in my Notion dashboard. I've got all of the different ones that I go back to regularly. And this is an example from what I was using last year. And then when I realized how much more powerful I could do it in ChatGPT, I created the Content Viralizer, which instantly does it for all of the different variations rather than me having to copy and paste it into each different style. Or I can ask it to specifically create a certain style within the Content Viralizer. So organize it, put it into whatever document or note-taking app that you use so that you can instantly take those prompts and turn it from your long form content into your short form pieces that you want to create. And then just put the finishing touches on it. Sometimes you don't get the best result initially, but with a little bit of tweaking and taking, a couple of minutes before you post it to just make sure that it's polished and looks good for what you want, you're going to have that excellent piece that's got a good chance of gaining more impressions than your typical content that you would post, as well as potentially going viral, which can happen when you follow the same frameworks that somebody that's doing it on a regular basis is doing as well. Now, as you can see, I have created this Content Viralizer GPT, and if you want access to it, subscribe to my Substack. You'll find the access to gain the link to it so that you can use it for yourself. This is a constantly improving and updating one that's based off of all the most viral types of content. So it is a very useful one if you don't want to go through the hassle of doing this work for yourself. And if you found this really useful, but you don't have time to do this for your business or brand, click the link in the description to set up a call for me to talk more about my ghostwriting retainer. I do this for brands all the time and create viral content for them, as well as do their content writing and strategic writing for their business. If you are interested, we can set up a time to chat and I can tell you more about how I can help you.